You touched upon it there, but in a bit more detail, if you don't mind, sort of your roles, even within the early days and sort of what that entailed and how it developed along the way. And I guess what you ended up sort of becoming once you established yourself in the first team realms before we delve into more details in around the stories and what have you. Just, your roles from start to finish, I guess, at Liverpool.
Yeah, so I started off as an intern, and I think as an intern, there's not necessarily a descriptive role as such. You're kind of just learning from different people in different departments. And I think Conor Murta, I have to say a big thank you to him for his persistence in trying to get me back in the door, because he obviously saw something in me in that week of work experience where I shadowed. And I kind of was floating around the pre-training elements a lot with the 15s, 18s and 21s, so assisting in their pre-training gym sessions. Same for post-gym, and the same working around some of the injured players. So I had quite a full experience with like injured and fit players pre and post-training. And then when I went over to the first team, it was basically more of the same for the first year or so. I did a little bit of everything, started to do more of the rehab side, particularly at Melwood. Sort of being with the players from like stages where they couldn't run and couldn't go on the pitch all the way up until they're sort of back in the team again. So the first few years of Melwood, that was a big part of my role alongside the daily sort of pre-training elements. So the way we did it, and I believe it's still the same now, it's like each fitness coach had a collection of 5 to 10 players that they were responsible for, and they programmed for, and they delivered everything for them before training and after training.
Okay.
I had my little group of players, and did my thing with them pre-training, post-training. And then on top of that, there's all sorts of things like testing and preseason, which we'll probably talk about at some stage.
Can't wait. Honestly, that's one of the things they can't wait for.
Really?
Oh, mate, I love it. Absolutely love it, yeah. We had a preseason chat with Sammy Lee, actually, but that was centred around the football side of things, in terms of the preparation, in terms of the type of tests you want, the results, do they matter, all that. The fitness element of it is a whole different ball game. I just can't wait for that. Right, let's concentrate. Do you want to pick up on anything with Jordan while we're at it there in terms of that, or are we quite good to crack on?
I mean, I had the question about setting S&C plans, but I think pre-training, post-training, I think that basically covers it, to be honest. And all the testing, obviously, that's how you...
we'll probably go into more detail, for sure,
Do that now, if you want.
Yeah, can do, yeah.
Go for it, why not?
Just obviously around where being set sort of, your program to follow for the week. I presume that just comes from all your testing, the weaknesses, the imbalances and stuff. Is that how it's sort of built around? And then obviously you have, especially now for me, going before a game, I've got to do activation work and stuff like that to get your muscles firing and that. Is that all built off the testing that you do, where it identifies weaknesses and strengths?
Primarily, yeah. So there'll be a battery of tests. So there'll be power tests, there'll be strength tests, range of motion, endurance. We started to do some speed testing as well, and biomechanical analysis at the end of my time at the club. And you mentioned like asymmetries and imbalances is an area that we might focus on. But one thing to also, for us to bear in mind is like trends. So a really basic example is the right side worse than the left side in multiple tests, for example, or over years has the right side got worse over time, for example, again. So we use those pre-season tests as not as the main part of how we program, but a big part of how we program. And then other things that go into that might be training age of the player. So I worked a lot with the transition players from 21s to first team. So their program might look slightly different to a Cody Gakpo that I've had, who's been in the first team environments for 3, 4, 5 years. And then on top of that, again, for being really specific, there might be positional differences. So a centre back might have different pitch strength exercises to a winger. So a centre back might be like holding and grappling players with both hands. A winger might be holding players off with the one arm at the side. So it might like really change some of the nuances of real specific exercises for those players. But in terms of muscle activation and sort of pre-match routines for like the likes of yourself, like if there's a common trend or a theme of poor knee stability due to poor hip activation, then for yourself, that'd be a good starting point. And for a lot of the players that we worked with at Liverpool, like that might be an area to work in. So the testing gives us a nice picture, gives us a nice profile. And then to add context on top of that, there's like players' training age, positional demands, maybe their character and their personality. Like they might like some, so Harvey Elliott as an example is a really like a lot of energy, very competitive, likes full energy and full power and full speed stuff. So exercises for him to sort of get fired up might be something that's quite competitive or fun. So he can like really sort of throw his personality into it. Whereas a Joe Gomez, for example, kind of a more quiet, mellow type of guy, likes his routine. He likes to like, know what he's doing, how he's doing it, and like quite methodical. So you kind of have to play to the individual's characters as well. And that for me was actually a really fun part of pre-training planning for my group of players and getting to know them and how they work. And I give one more little one, Dom Szoboszlai. So he came in from Leipzig. Really, really good seasons there, playing really well. And this isn't the only player that has this belief. There'll be many others, but like he kind of associated his quality and his class in those leagues as this was a time when I didn't do too much gym stuff. So like I don't necessarily need to do a lot of gym stuff to play well. But you come into the Premier League, different intensity. So there's like a nice kind of like almost like a daily negotiation period that we went through. Okay, like these are the things that I think you should do today. And you'd be like, no, yes, no, yes, no. And they've kind of like, play the game, like have to kind of play the game a little bit with them. And again, like, okay, Dom, like what kind of stuff do you like to do? And kind of like blend it towards, so like the kind of the personal side of it and the sort of creating exercises and the buy-in and working with players side was really cool as well.
That's fascinating. And you know what, it picks up on something I was going to ask later on, but we may as well riff off it while we're here, because that element of new signings arriving, because we often say, rightly or wrongly, the Premier League is the most intense, the toughest league in world football. Did you find then, clearly from what you said there in terms of Szoboszlai, that man management element of being a fitness coach is also really fascinating, because we only really think about the actual manager himself needing to manage different personalities, but it clearly filters and trickles down to every single type of coach in every department. But in terms of new signings, you'll have seen many during your time around Liverpool first team, of course. Did you, as a group, as a department, have it sort of preset in your mind that because they're coming from different leagues, the likelihood is they will need to ramp up certain types of strength training in particular?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think the biggest load and the biggest thing to consider would be what they do on the pitch. So managing their training demands would be really important, and ultimately their match minutes as well. So you can look at purely at numbers and say, for example, this player covers 10K a game, 500 meters 1,000 meters of high speed running, 200 meters of sprint in his previous league. Bring him to the Premier League and he might do exactly the same on paper. But there's, again, the nuances of being in the Premier League, the speed that they play and the speed that they think it attacks them in a slightly different way. So yeah, I think biding time to allow players to sort of get used to the training. So Jurgen era, the intensity was honestly like ridiculous. Like watching some of the rondos, and I'd say fortunately or unfortunately having to be a part of some of those sessions, like as a player myself, is like what the speed that this is happening is like.
Seen Chamberlain mention that on there. Was it the Ben Foster podcast?
Oh yeah.
He mentions, like he said, he couldn't move for like the first 3 months.
It's honestly unbelievable. So I think, yeah, you said like it was kind of preset in our minds. Like we know like these new signings are coming into something completely different to what they're used to. And not on top of that, a lot of these guys are moving from different countries, maybe completely on their own. They're moving their families later. It's a huge like life change for them. So being mindful of that. And I think it was Gini Wijnaldum at one stage. It's mad how you get like little random memories of conversations you have.
Yeah. Of course,
I was on a jog with him at Melwood, and I think we were talking about Fabinho, who had just signed, and I think he missed a penalty in pre-season, and maybe we had a slower start to the pre-season, and Genie was just saying it just takes time. Like the Premier League is such a hard league to get used to. It just takes time. Like, so yeah, like. Yes, to answer your question, it's a massive change for a lot of players that come from different leagues. And
I remember that penalty miss as well, because I think I might have seen he had a missed one, that's all, in Monaco. And then he got to Liverpool and missed like the first and he took as well. Like, great, yeah. You touched upon it there, actually, so we'll carry on that train of thought as well, just in terms of that intensity. I know you're talking specifically about the sessions, and that's something you can talk in more detail on as well, clearly, because that would have had a knock-on impact in terms of your day-to-day working. But just just that environment, just that pressure, because clearly the demands are ridiculously high. Not only you're Liverpool Football Club, you're at Liverpool Football Club during a very successful periods, trophies left, right and centre, competing on all fronts more often than not. The schedule of it, because I think a lot was spoken about when it comes to Klopp sort of changing the training times to marry up with matches, like just that whole time, that whole space, that whole environment, the scheduling again, like it must have just been a whirlwind day to day.
You see the smile on my face, but it was just literally like a whirlwind. Yeah, it was very chaotic. Changes of training time, day to day, week to week, kind of kept you on your toes a lot. But ultimately, like it's Liverpool Football Club. It's my opinion, like top 3 in the world, and everyone in that building, in that training ground, their goal is to maintain that status within the club and to win matches. And the Jurgen era was high intensity. It was ruthlessness in terms of training demands, routines, schedules, training times. And you just said, like, we won trophies left, right and centre, and job done. But it was tough. Like I was saying to you before off camera, like there were many periods throughout those years when myself and other coaches and players would have had 10, 12, 14, 15, 18 days in a row without having a day off, due to match demands, due to, in my case, if the team's away playing matches, I'll be in the training ground with squad players that aren't playing, and I'll be delivering training sessions there. And then if the squad's off, then I might be in with some of the young goalkeepers because of like differences in their schedules, and it kind of like can fall under the radar a little bit of like how many days in a row you've had. So yeah, it was tough. Like it was really tough. Not much for social life, of course, but that just comes with being at such a big football club.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine it does. Brutal, isn't it?
Yeah,
we didn't see all that.
No, that's all. Like, there's so many things you don't realise what go on behind the scenes, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's just like so many moving parts to everything, isn't there?
I guess, as you say, comes with the territory, doesn't it, being in Liverpool, and again, Liverpool trying to be as successful as possible, and so much of that Klopp era, we've used the word intensity 3 or 4 times already. Pep Linder's book will be loving us, but like it was underpinned by that, wasn't it? And did you? It was this first sort of football job you'd had, apart from being a footballer. Yeah, mm-hmm. Did you just take it as like because again, Jurgen Klopp's style is heavy metal football, isn't replicated everywhere. So did you sort of treat this as, well, this is just the way this manager wants us? This isn't football, full stop. Because again, not every single football club, not every single manager in world football would have such high demands of the fitness department, etc.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like you say, it was my first real role in football outside of being a player, and I got used to what it was very quickly. And my perception actually was, okay, like this is just how it is. Yeah, here. I wasn't really thinking too much about other clubs or other managers. This is just how it is here. And it wasn't maybe until 2 or 3 years into my time at the club, I started to work with the loan players and be in communication with them whilst they're at their loan clubs, and be in communication with their staff whilst they're at their loan clubs, and starting to notice trends between what all the other clubs, albeit at lower levels, were doing compared to us. And you start to realize, okay, there are like a lot of different ways of working, and some things we're doing completely different and uniquely to ourselves. Some things these teams are all doing that we're not doing. Mm-hmm. No right or wrong way, it's just different. And and then sort of throughout the rest of my time at Liverpool, and those conversations and networks grew, and you start to get a bigger picture of how different types of teams work, different types of schedules, where ours fit in comparison to different clubs. And yeah, I think, like you said it again, it's like the intensity of that era was unique to us. I don't remember seeing many other teams that had a schedule similar. I actually had a conversation with someone who was at Norwich at the time, a staff member, and I can't remember their manager, but he was a German manager also, and I think their schedule was quite similar in terms of just 3 weeks on the trot without a day off. And just
was it Redmen?
Yes.
Klopp's best mate.
Yes.
Yeah. I suppose you just
I didn't want to throw it out there in case I was wrong.
No, you're right.
I can imagine it would have been.
And that's why I met him. So not Wagner, but the coach, because Norwich City were just being shown around the AXA training centre. So I think, Jurgen's invited his mate round to show his staff around. So it's a lot of different ways of playing football and being successful. But Liverpool's way under Jurgen was full throttle, and it was like full throttle.
It's interesting that though, because obviously you have loan managers or people who speak to clubs about actually sorting the loan moves out or actually watching them and providing reports and that? Is it often that you'll see like fitness, S&C, physios getting involved, speaking across clubs about where the lads are up to, what programs they're following and stuff?
Yeah, so that was primarily part of my role, was to have those conversations, was to say to the loan club, okay, this is what the player's used to, this is what we recommend his training to look like. These are the exercises in his gym program which we suggest keeps, like we understand he might have to do some different stuff. So yeah, I would every month then get the players' training data, GPS data, match data, put it into a report, have a conversation with the player, have a conversation with the staff, and then like put a report together for the heads of departments, for the loan managers, for the rest of the staff. So that was just a part of the role that I forgot to mention at the start when you asked, like...
Sounds like you're all in full position, is it?
So yeah, there's
enough plates up in the air, so yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's one of those parts of the role. It's like just another thing to do, and clubs are now having full departments to do that, to look after loan players.
Fine-tuning process then? So when they went there to begin with, it was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. You speak to the player, speak to the club, and then obviously as the season goes on, say it's a season-long loan, you sort of fine-tune it to sort of meet everyone's demands.
Yeah, and it's some clubs are really easy to work with and some clubs are harder, and that's just how it was. And again, some players were great to work with and some players weren't as good in terms of information they gave and the communication we had. But I think overall most players were pretty decent and most clubs were good. You got a few lads at clubs so they just give you like a one-line reply to a massive email that I sent. It's like sound, but it is what it is, man.
Yeah. Liverpool have grown a tendency to deal with the same club where they possibly can in recent times when it comes to loans. I think they like the relationships they've struck up once or twice with a few, and I think that's probably again another reason why, because of the relationships, and they know their players are going to be looked after and get best possible care as well. Right, let's talk about pre-season. Probably your most pivotal and busiest time, would imagine. I wanted to ask you straight off the bat before we dive into some more details in the round, like how far in advance is the fitness department working on what pre-season looks like, and how involved are you in those conversations? Because again, we speak about it so much, we're still speaking about it now in some cases when it comes to Liverpool today. So for you guys, just how crazy can that be? And again, how pre-planned is it?
It would be towards the end of the season prior, would be talking about the programs that they would have in their off season, which would obviously then prepare them for the pre-season that they're about to have. Myself personally, I wouldn't be involved in the conversations about the pre-season and what that's going to look like. That'll be the heads of department will have those conversations between physical, medical, and like technical, tactical coaches in terms of the outline of the football sessions. But my involvement would be involved in the planning of the off-season program, and that will start to be probably a week or two before the end of the season. We'll have those conversations and we'll start to plan those, and then they got forgotten about, and then it's like the day before the end of the season, you're like, we need to get the programs done because no one wants to be doing it in their off season. So yeah, like the end of the season, we start to talk about and planning the next pre-season.
What happens with the lads who are coming in then? Obviously, we mentioned it this season with quite a few players who were signed. Like, how long does it take to? Because obviously, touched on it before about getting your baselines and stuff. Is that where obviously you get your, like when I was going through obviously rehab myself or fitness testing, you work off a baseline like portfolio of yourself, don't you? Is that where your first pre-season in, say it's Isaac this summer, he comes in, is that where they sort of get the baseline and the work from that for however long he's at the club?
Yeah, so what usually would happen is the club that we buy a player from would send over a history. So there'll be like fitness testing history of maybe the last year, maybe a bit longer. The same with GPS data and training data and match data. So we get a good picture of what they've done in the last year. And then the day they sign we'll do all our testing as well to see where they're at right now. So when Chiesa signed, for example, that was a January transfer, and it was, I think, 10 o'clock at night. We were doing our gym testing with him, and he was in the gym with myself and another coach called Ed Harper, and you get to know the player quite well in such a short space of time. But just the fact, like, that's just how it is. Like, it's 10 o'clock at night and we had to get this data, because I think like that plays a part in, like, do we actually sign this player or not? Is there anything underpinning here which is like strikingly like, not sure.
Red flag. Yeah.
What's happened with Teta, didn't it?
Yeah, recently over in AC Milan. Yeah.
So yeah, like as soon as a player gets in the building, we'll get our own data on him. But before that, will get a history from the club that they've come from to get an idea, and then probably use a bit of both to sort of guide that first program also for the player.
I wonder how reluctant Newcastle were to send Alexander Isak stated over it. So the way that all unfolded, yeah, I can imagine they weren't too keen on that. I want to speak a bit more about pre-season and what impact it has thereafter as well in the moment, because again we've spoken, and this summer in particular, for heartbreaking reasons by the way, was obviously disrupted pre-season. I think it may still be having an impact on one or two players, all the upheaval in terms of new signings as well. Isak didn't have a pre-season full stop, and we know where he's at obviously now. But before we do, yeah, you mentioned testing there a minute ago, and obviously when you come back first day pre-season, I think it's sort of, whether it happens or not, whether it's true or not, certainly a lot of the older players I speak to, so we didn't see a ball for 2 weeks or whatever, just ran and ran and ran. It used to be up sand dunes and hills and all kinds of stuff. It might not be quite as brutal as that, but one thing we do know from Jurgen Klopp's era was the infamous lactate test. Something I imagine you were in the round quite a lot. I've got 2 words for you. It just happens to be a name, and it's James Milner. Is it true?
He's a beast, yeah. He's a beast. I actually also remember slightly. So we do the lactate test to get blood lactate scores and get heart rates and speeds that they run, and that kind of gives you an individual for each player, like speeds that they'll do other runs in. So we used to do a lot of 1 kilometer runs, and we group the players into certain times based off their blood lactate. And I believe James Milner, his lactate score was say X, which was like okay, but his like mentality to be able to run with the lactate and the pain in his legs was really high. So what would happen is we'd get his score, we'd group him in say the second or third group for the 1K runs. But James Milner being James Milner is like, well, no, I know I can do the runs faster than that, so I'm just going to go into the higher groups. And it kind of like, you just let him do it, because like that was Millie. But yeah, he would smash the lactate test, and again, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was something about his score which meant that he went into a slower group, even though he just smashed it every time. Like, he just ran until he couldn't run anymore, even if his blood lactate was like off the chart. So I don't think he ever got beat when I was there.
Did people ever? Because obviously, listen, this is a group of lads ultimately in a changing room, in a dressing room, about to do tests. Like, did people ever fancy themselves and think like, this is the year, this is the day? You know what I mean? Like, I've worked, I've had a good off season, I've followed my program, nutrition's been boss, etc., etc., etc. I'm having Millie. Was that like a thing? Did you notice that?
Not that I heard, but I'm sure it went on. Yeah. I'm sure it happened. I'm sure there might have been either people saying it to themselves quietly, perhaps, or like giving it the big one to the boys. But I don't remember Millie getting beat.
No, machine.
Yeah.
And as we spoke about off camera, another conversation off camera before, like the fella's about to break the all-time Premier League appearance record at 40 years of age. Like, does that, when I say that, do you just kind of think, well, obviously, because it's James Milner? Yeah. And the way he looked after himself, because again, there's all the jokes about boring James Milner, you know, the Vibina, like he plays into it as well now, but like, he has kept himself. He must be a dream for someone like you. Kept himself absolutely, you know, pristine, hasn't he?
Brilliant. It's a really easy, but also quite challenging at times to work with. So he does everything to a T. He looks after himself, diet-wise, gym-wise, sleep-wise. So when there's an option to sleep in a hotel or not, he'll take the option because it's a better night's sleep. Private yoga instructors at home to look after his mobility in that sense. But he'll question everything. So he can like catch you off a little bit and be like, well, why are we doing it like that? I've not done it that way before. And it's like, okay, like you kind of have your answers, but like he wants to know what's best for him, and it's worked. And like you say, he's going to break the all-time Premier League record for amount of games and the age as well. So he's a type of player. I'd rather work with players like that than players that are really like hard work in the gym. And to be fair to most players at Liverpool, like they were great. But yeah, Millie looked after himself. And I think a really key thing to say is probably looked after himself his whole career. It wasn't just something that he decided to do when he turned 33 or 34. Like, he took it seriously from a young age, and having people like him in the training ground, in the gym, with younger players around is huge, amazing. And again, I'll look at Mo and Sadio for that as well. First two in the gym. And I think they were quietly competing with each other, like, who's in the gym first, who's doing the most crunches and stuff. But like, it just kind of set a really good example. And then like, I work really close with Curtis Jones, and he starts to notice, okay, like these players are doing that. and he's in there early with them. And then other players start to notice, and it just sets a really, really good culture. And that's one thing that we did so well. And wasn't necessarily because of us as staff, but like the players, just, I don't know, it just came organically. But the culture to look after ourselves in the gym was amazing. And it was led by your Millies, Mo's, Sadio's, Hendo's, and then the younger players start to look into that. And before you know it, every new player that comes, oh, okay, we do gym properly here. Like, we take it serious. We come in early, and yeah, that was the culture.
That was a clip from the Coaches Corner. To check out the whole show, simply download the Redmen Plus app or click the link in the description.